Well, a pair of key interest rate announcements are expected in Canada and south of the border tomorrow, and many economists aren't expecting there to be any changes. CTV's Colton Prail joins us live with more, even though the U.S. president was kind of nudging Jerome Powell the other day to maybe try and lower that rate in the U.S., but it doesn't seem like the Feds are going to do it. But what are you hearing?
Yeah, that's just it. The president is searching for a weaker dollar. He prefers a weaker dollar. It makes the tariff revenue that he is getting that much more worthwhile, because obviously the cost of foreign goods would be higher with a weaker U.S. dollar, and that brings in more revenue through tariffs. But that's unlikely to happen, in large part because of the president's own tariff policies in Canada and in the U.S. The trade dispute, the uncertainty that we are seeing in the global economy is driving a decision that is expected to see both the Bank of Canada and the U.S. Federal Reserve stay where they're at, and that's been the trend so far. If it does come to bear tomorrow, it would be the third decision in a row where the Bank of Canada hasn't shifted the interest rate. In the U.S., we really haven't seen much movement since December. In both of these countries, there are differing reasons, but it ultimately comes down to the impact of tariffs on the economy. Certainly here in Canada, there is concern that if the rate does get lowered and the tariff situation improves, then you've got inflationary pressures to deal with. Inflation in Canada, core inflation's at 3.1% or so, a little stickier, a little higher than the Bank of Canada would like it to be. On the flip side, though, we've seen this resilient economy. Should things get worse under tariffs, that would be when you would start to see the Bank of Canada start considering and moving towards lowering rates. In the U.S., as much as the president says his tariffs aren't causing inflation, economists disagree, and we have seen inflation rising over the last couple of months in the United States, and that's a big reason why we're not seeing movement from the U.S. Federal Reserve. Today, the IMF coming out and saying they expect that inflation is going to worsen in the second half of the year, even as we do get a little bit more certainty with the U.S. making all of these trade deals. And so that's part of the reason why Jerome Powell isn't shifting that rate too drastically, just to see, essentially not rock the boat, see how things shape out, and see if the U.S. economy can withstand any potential increase in inflation as a result of more consistent tariffs.
Another group of people who have been looking forward to tomorrow's announcement are investors, especially here in Canada, Colton. And it was just about 2 weeks ago that StatsCan just released some new numbers. $83.9 billion has left Canada in 2025. Foreign investors, they're reducing their risk to the Canadian equities. So obviously this is going to be of interest to many investors, not only here, but also south of the border as well.
Absolutely. And the U.S. Fed keeping things where they're at makes the U.S. a valuable and secure place to invest. Obviously, if that interest rate drops, it's going to be a deterrent to foreign investment, and again leads to that weaker dollar that the U.S. president is looking for. But here in Canada as well, the bigger thing too is we don't have that economic certainty. Even the Bank of Canada last time around, when it made its decision, provided a couple of different options for what the economic scenario in Canada could look like based on different tariff rates, and that's very unusual. Usually we see the Bank of Canada provide a pretty clear outline of where it expects the Canadian economy is going and what it's going to look like. And when you don't have that kind of certainty, even from the Bank of Canada, it really makes it a scary place for investors and businesses to say, yeah, I'm willing to put forth a couple million or hundreds of thousands or even tens or hundreds of millions of dollars with such an uncertain economic situation. And so should we see the Bank of Canada revert to a more simplistic or even just a single scenario forecast, perhaps that would hint at a little bit more certainty in the direction that Canada is going. But at this point in time, it's a decision coming just days before we're potentially looking at 35% tariffs. And so, it's a little unlikely, I think, that we're going to see the Bank of Canada be much more certain in the direction of our economy, given just how much is yet to potentially be decided in the upcoming days.
And that rate announcement should come tomorrow, roughly around 10 o'clock. So we'll have that right here on CTV24. CTV's Colton Prail. Appreciate that report. Thank you.